Hello everyone, Brendan DeCandio here, and I'm going to be going through the entire set list of Disney Lorcana, giving them rankings from 1 to 5 stars, and telling you what I think. So let's not waste any time here, get started with the first color we're going to go through, which is Amethyst. Jump right in here. So, to begin, we have You Have Forgotten Me in action. Each opponent discards 2 cards. Now, Mind Rot, for those who come from Magic, has always been not quite playable and constructed, but okay in limited. This game's a little bit different. Resources come, are your actions and your spells and your characters are all your resources. So depleting them of resources and overall can be a certain strategy that works well enough there, but we haven't quite seen enough support in the first set. There's a couple discard cards, which maybe if you piece together could come together quite nicely, but not completely sold on it. Going to give this one 2 stars just to start here. It's definitely, a solid inclusion there if its discard strategy is prevalent, because I'm sure there's a lot of greedy-ish ramp decks, but with the existence of some of the other cards in the game there that maybe draw a bunch of cards all at once, maybe not the best option there. But moving right along, Pumbaa. So pretty vanilla creature, 3 attack and 5 health there. Only 1 lore going along with it, costing 4. Very much a limited card there for constructed purposes, which is most of what the review here is going to be. Not something I'd be including in my decks there unless there's some kind of benefit to having Pumbaa specifically, which there isn't so far. So kind of a 1-star card. Don't really want to include in many things at the beginning there. Mr. Smee, the pirate who, for some reason stays with Captain Hook there. Also a vanilla card. However, this stat line is a little bit better, I would say, there. It's costing 1 less than Pumbaa. Not something I'm thrilled to play with there, but it is a unique stat line. I don't think there's any other 2 5s in the game that we've seen so far. So a little bit more constructed viability, even though not something I'm thrilled about. Could see play. But let's kind of scroll right on down here to some of the more exciting princesses, I would say. We have Cinderella, Gentle and Kind, Singer 5. So you can exert her to cast a song that costs 5 for free. Notably cards like A Whole New World and the AoE 2 damage to all your opponent's things. Can't remember the name of it right now, but we'll get to it eventually. But definitely Singer is a relevant ability. Singing 5 is pretty key in a lot of cards there. And the ability A Wonderful Dream, remove up to 3 damage counters from the chosen princess character. Definitely gives some strength to some Amber, Sapphire princess decks, I'm sure, that could come together. Definitely something to look out for. I'd give this one probably a 3 stars, a solid role player. Nothing to really write home about. Similar stat line to Smee, but the abilities on it definitely give it some staying power there. Maximus, Stoneborn Ally, bodyguard. So it comes down exerted, and they are forced to challenge it before they can challenge anything else. So it's kind of a taunt for those familiar with Hearthstone. Support, whenever this character quests, you add their attack power to something else. So that actually is quite a hefty bonus. Gives your 1 mana 2/2s, which are in every different color in this game, a big bonus there on the following turn, and also helps protect kind of your actual win condition going forward. So definitely a good role player, similar to Cinderella. Nothing amazing to write home about, but it definitely will see play. It is a strong card. I give this one probably 3 stars out of 5 there. Rapunzel, Storyborn Hero Princess, Gleam and Glow. When you play it, remove 3 damage counters from one of your characters. Okay. 4 cost, just like Cinderella. 1/5 worse stats, 2 lore, which is pretty common with princesses. There's a lot of higher lore count princesses, but you get to draw a card for each 1 damage removed this way. Now, there's not that many card draw effects in the game. Currently, we only 1 set in, so this one definitely has a lot of upside. If you're able to challenge early or use Maximus to bodyguard, they have to kind of throw some things into it maybe over the course of 2 turns. Not recommended against Amber, but definitely something that could happen. And this could be 4 cost princess with 2 lore, enters play and draws 3 cards. Now that's pretty powerful. Definitely going to be the highest rating we've gotten so far, 4 stars. Not quite an amazing bomb, I would say, but definitely a card that will be included in many Amber decks, even devoid of any kind of princess synergies there. But coming down to the next one, Hakuna Matata. Now, the ability to remove 3 damage counters from each of your characters is definitely powerful. You'd have to set that up with kind of a series of challenges, I'd imagine, on your side, because I don't think that your opponent's going to leave you a bunch of slightly damaged characters when they go to attack into your things. I'd imagine they'd kill them, as they can. But the fact that it's a song and is inkable, definitely relevant for some of the cards we're going to see in a minute there. A role player, most inkable cards are playable. I wouldn't say this is an amazing card, but it will see play. But as far as power level goes there, probably about 2 stars. Just, you'd have to craft a situation where this is good, and a lot of what's going to be good is probably not involving setting up board states like this, more just generically powerful effects. Prince Philip, Dragon Slayer. So heroism, the character challenges character and is banished. You may banish the challenged character. So not inkable really is a knock against this guy here. 3/3 for 4, not in a most impressive stats, especially with only the 2 questing or 2 lore counters there to quest for. The fact that it's not whenever it's challenged or challenges really is, again, a knock against it, like we've seen on some other cards there. So it has to be attacking or challenging a character and die. So it can kill anything, which is strong, but definitely leaves a little bit to be desired there. I'm going to give this a 3. It's a low 3. I would do 2.5. I'm doing halves, but I'm not doing halves. But yeah, it's not really exciting from my opinion there. Inkable, maybe it would have been better, but most things would be better for inkable. Ursula's Shell Necklace. Whenever you play a song, you may pay 1 to draw a card. The critical mass of songs will eventually come. I don't think we're there yet, but it's definitely something to keep an eye on for right now. In the set 1 thing we've got going on here, I'd probably not want to include this in too many decks, especially since there's going to be some aggressive decks with all the cheap lore creatures, the one mana 1/1s that lore for 2 or quest for 2. But definitely something to keep an eye on going forward as the game progresses and more cards get added. So keeping it there. Let's scroll on down. We have Sebastian, 2 mana 2/2, Lords for 1, quest for 1, Singer 4, can cast, counts as 4 to sing songs. It's fine. Defined role player there. Definitely a solid card. 2, maybe 3 out of 4. This would be a 2.5 for sure. So let's kind of go dabble back and forth there. 2.5. Will see play, but there's not that many 4-cost songs. We did see the discard 2 one, but those kind of strategies I don't feel like line up too well, but could be good. Now Ariel. Ariel is the first card we saw that really was a really powerful singer. I think it spoiled at the same time as Sebastian did. Now this one, setting up cards like A Whole New World and the damage all your opponent's characters spells is super powerful, but the fact that it can also essentially draw a card when you play it is very powerful. It's going to see play in most Amber decks, especially Amber Steel, with the amount of songs that they have to look for. Something that's going to see play in most decks that just have songs and want to cast them. Decent stats and also a princess for synergies that matter there. Definitely getting a solid 4 stars out of 5 there. Next up is Lilo. Vanilla creature, just a 1 mana 1/1 that lords for 2. These are definitely going to be strong and cards you have to answer, but the prevalence of the 1 mana 2/2s is going to kind of check them a lot, I'd imagine. It's hard to keep these alive, but they are very good. Them being very weak to the steel kind of decks that seem to have a lot of AoE damage effects with Big Tinkerbell, which we'll get to. But these are fine. I'm going to give them probably 3 because they are pretty aggressive, and 1 mana 2 lord is definitely something to keep the game in check. But I could see these being something that we think are really good, but also kind of fall off as the decks kind of get more fine-tuned there. But speaking of ways to protect cards like this, next up we have Simba, Protective Cub, Bodyguard. So Bodyguard's an interesting mechanic that just kind of helps you protect, kind of taunt. You have to attack this before anything else. I think this is a sleeper card for one of the best cards in the set right now, especially in Amber. It just, the stat line is so prevalent at all the 1 mana 2/2s that just a 2/3 really, makes it so you have a bit more agency over what your opponent can or cannot do. So this one's getting a 3. Definitely a good role player. I've included it, I think, in most Amber decks I've built so far up to this point. So yeah, I would definitely want to have this card in most Amber decks just to have early defense, and also they could attack into a lot of the 2 health characters as well, just to kind of get some value that way card draw doesn't always appear in the same ways that you might think, especially when damage is sticky, so like in this game. So Stitch, Carefree Surfer, 4/8, lore 2. When you play this character, if you have 2 or more other characters in play, draw 2 cards. 7's a lot. It is inkable, so that's fine. And card draw is pretty scarce. The fact that it's not doesn't have shift to come down cheaper, you'd have to play this in some kind of deck, I'd imagine, that has some kind of ramp spells in it. Some of the Sapphire spells or some of the Sapphire cards that allow you to put more cards into your inkwell sooner. But it certainly does play a big part in that if you want to do some kind of Amber, Sapphire, deck there. A lot of the 7s, I'd imagine, you really have to be playing Sapphire with to come out early. But this card's fine. I don't think it's that good. I think it pales in comparison to some of the other cards we have. I'll give it a 3 just to... It'll see some play maybe as a kind of curve topper, much like if you ever played Hearthstone in the early days, Ancient of Lore, 7 mana, 5/5, draw 2. But yeah, it's okay. It's not spectacular. So next is Goofy Bodyguard. Again, Bodyguard coming up there, 2 lore or 1 lore, 3/6. When you play this character, you may remove 2 damage from each of your Musketeer characters. Now, for this to be really good, I think you need a lot of Musketeers in your deck, obviously, for the effect when you play it to matter. 3/6 Bodyguard is reasonable. It's not something I'm thrilled to play in my decks, especially since a lot of the Musketeers are higher cost. So you really have to kind of build your deck in a way where you kind of have this huge wall you're essentially building to protect yourself and other characters with. So it's fine. I'm not thrilled by it. I'm going to give this a 2. It could see play. I've definitely put it in some decks to try and see if Bodyguard protecting some of the more powerful, higher casting cost cards works. And this stat line's pretty good at fending off most things that can attack it. But I'm not sold on this being the way to go in the game. We're going to move right on down to everyone's favorite chicken, Hey. Support. So when you have this character quest, you may add their attack power to a different character. So 1 mana 1/2, kind of, when you gain lore going to quest there, you get to kind of get more attack to something else. These are fine. They're role players. They're not spectacular. They will see play. Solid 2 stars, just filler kind of card if your deck really wants to get into combat a lot. So Goofy, we already went through. Timon, when you play this character, remove 1 damage from the chosen character. Again, the game has a lot of 1 mana 2/2s, and that's really a hard baseline to fight through with the 1/2s here, just because they are going to die pretty easily, and the effect has to be powerful enough. I know it's only costing 1, but I'm not really sold on a lot of these being fine. They're 2, they're filler. You'll play them in some decks, but not anything to write home about here. Scrolling on down, Be Our Guest. So a song, tap something, costs 2 to play it for free. Look at the top 4, put a character to your hand, put the rest on the bottom. Fine, kind of like an impulse from Magic. If you have certain specific princesses or other cards you want to hit on turn 3, definitely something to help find them and make your deck a little bit more consistent. Songs to pair with Ariel. This is another card that kind of pairs with Ariel very well, just being a song to find off their triggered ability when you play it. So definitely a strong card. I'd probably give this a 3. It'll show up in most Amber decks, especially in the first set, just to kind of power out and make their decks a little bit more consistent. So yeah, solid. Maximus. So this is the 3-cost variation of it. When you play this character, something gets -2 strength till the end of this turn, so it helps you kind of beat up on some of those 1 mana 2/2s if you're kind of back and forth in combat there. It's fine. It means you have to have something to attack with in play already. If there's much of a draft format or limited format, I could see this being very, very good. It's okay. It's not, again, great, but it's okay. 2 stars. Similar to Ariel here on legs, it being a princess is its only saving grace. Can't sing songs, which is very flavorful, and I do like, just because, of course, it's an Ariel, lost her voice, but not anything great. Getting a 2-star here, just because, Scrolling on down, just in time indeed. So you may play a character with 5 costs or less for free. It's not inkable. So this is an interesting card because it kind of lets you take this color of Amber and kind of compare it against all the other colors in Lorcana and look at all the cards that cost 5 to see what you can cheat out early. Now, there's not too many great things to cheat out. There's a couple that are fine questers, but I'm not certain how relevant a Seething Song type effect is going to be for the game. it being uninkable is its worst quality. Of course, that's a really good balancing mechanic. Be able to make a card like this and not have it have real diminishing returns, which it does. Drawing it past the earlier turns is not ideal. It'll see play. I think in the decks it does see play, and it'll be very good when drawn. So that's why it's going to get a 3-star rating. It's not something I'm interested in building around, but it definitely is a powerful effect given the right characters to put into play. So solid card, not for me, but we'll see play. Li Fu, Storyborn Ally. So if you have Gaston, costs 1 less to play. It's very similar to the early questers. It's quite good at getting a bunch of lore, but it is a 1/2, so it'll die pretty easily. Fine, 2 stars. Not really anything exciting to write home about, but again, just filler. Next up, control your temper action. Target character gets -2. I'm not a fan of these type of mini buff or shrink effects or heal effects. They're not often worth the card that you're putting into them. It'd rather just be another card. It could help if there's a big minion with low attack that you're trying to attack into with a bunch of things with a lot of defense. But I'm not really sold on this being much of a card you'd want to play in constructed. So it's really just gonna get the 1 star because I don't want to play with it. I'd be happy if my opponent played with it. That's really the baseline for a 1 star. So I'm happy if they have it in their deck. But coming on down. Another vanilla creature, or character. It's going to be a while till I get that one right. Mini, 2/3. Unlike Simba, no bodyguard. Is a princess for princess decks. Fine. Filler for that. 2 stars for filling the your deck with more princesses if you want. Lantern. So Lantern is the kind of rampant growth of Amber. Makes your cards cost 1 less and works with Shift from the Q&A session that we got from the developers there. So it is good. Uninkable is, obviously the balancing technique with this card. Items do matter quite a bit. This card is very powerful on turn 2. It does get a little bit worse as the game goes on, but it really doesn't though, because whenever you would play something, as long as it's 1 less than what you could play for, you can play it later and immediately use the effect. So say you have this in your hand and you have a 3-cost card, and it's turn 4. Well, you can play your 4th resource, your 4th ink, play this, and then play your 3-cost card. So it's really not that big of a tempo loss, unlike just a straight rampant growth style effect. Uninkable, not great, but I'm gonna give this one a solid 3 stars. I would give it 3.5, so let's kind of toggle there between 3 and 4. It is a very good card. It will see play. It'll define a lot of different things you can do in this color, I believe, going forward. So yeah, definitely a strong card. Item synergies that do come up maybe in Sapphire lead it to being even better in those decks. So yeah. Next up, Mickey Mouse, Starborn Hero. Just a quest for 2 lore there. 3/3, fine stat line. Not exciting, just okay. A filling card. So moving on. I guess we already saw the hey here. I think some of the ones get duplicated by some of them being the promotional ones or not. So let's skip that one. Go to part of your world. So it's a song, 3 costs. Return a character from your discard to your hand. I don't really like these effects. There's a couple of them like this in the game, and they're not exciting. I'm sure if you have like a really good card you want to get back, but why not just play more copies of it? I understand the versatility of being able to choose which one at any given moment, and playing it for free is good, but it's really not something I'm about or want to kind of invest a whole card in and potentially have it being a dead card. Sure, maybe play one of this card in some decks just to get back something that you want in a given moment, but I wouldn't play more than one, really. It's not thrilling. But the fact that I could consider playing 2 stars over 1, so it's 1.5, sure. Especially when we look at the card right next to it. When you play this character, return a character from your discard to your hand. Return a character from your discard to your hand. So very similar. Hades, Lord of the Underworld. Instead of having it be a free song, potentially, that you have to put a character at risk of being challenged through by singing it for free, you get a 3/2, which, not the best stats. Also uninkable, so kind of same category as this, but definitely better. Kind of Gravedigger effect, which kind of, fits with Hades, Lord of the Underworld here. This one, I could see being played. Uninkable is definitely holding it back from being anything more than 2. I'd say 2.5 stars. So let's do the 2.5 stars there. Certainly fine. Let's move on to my favorite Disney character in existence, which is Stitch. 1 mana 2/2, these are going to see play in most every decks that have the colors to play them. So yeah, Stitch, great, solid role player 3. We'll get to the goods in a little bit on that one for my picks here. But yeah, Stitch is definitely going to be in every Amber deck, I think. Especially this one, which has some synergies going forward, which we'll get to in a moment. But moving on to Dingle Hopper, remove one damage from the chosen character. So you're going to need a few cards like this in your deck, which just kind of have utility that come up sometimes, but are also inkable, so you don't feel like you're making a huge cost to putting them into your deck. If this card wasn't inkable, it wouldn't be playable remotely. You'd have to have huge item synergies and have characters that get into combat a lot to really kind of take full advantage of this being relevant even. But the fact that it is inkable and the fact that this removing 1 damage can come up very in odd situations, and it's a repeatable effect that really can put a chokehold on a lot of what your opponents are doing there, trying to accomplish through combat, makes this card, I think, playable. Very, very, very potentially playable. I could see playing 1 or 2 of it in a lot of decks just to have that effect in your deck. Again, you can play it as a resource, as an part of your inkwell. So it doesn't have to be, the effect all the time. It can just be, a land essentially. But yeah, I give this solid 3 stars. It's definitely going to come up more than people would think, I think. Just from playing card games that use cards like the Inkwell or the Inkwell kind of strategy or Inkwell setup for resources like this game does. There are a few other games I've played that has similar resource systems. A card like this fits perfectly into many decks because of how versatile it is and how much it can just be a resource. So, solid. Healing Glow. I don't really understand why you'd play this over a card like Dingle Hopper right next to it. 2 is obviously greater than 1, but it's not really anything I'd touch. 1 star. I'd play Dingle Hopper over it almost every time, unless you have a heavy action synergy deck, which there isn't really much of a reason to do so from what I'm seeing right now. So, moving on. Moving on to probably my favorite card in the game right now, Stitch Rockstar. So, we saw this one early on. We didn't really know a lot of what was going on. It was one of the original, I think, promotional cards that were given out there. Shift 4, we didn't know what that meant really. Kind of like Evolve from Pokemon and other things like that. But this card definitely hits home, especially with the 1 cost 2/2 in Amber being Stitch, which is going to be played across the board. This card, questing for 3 on a Shift 4 is a lot of lore to be gaining that early. But also the ability of Adoring Fans. When you play a character that costs 2 or less, you may exert them to draw a card. So all the early game stuff that you have that may be much worse later in the game just kind of draws a card on its own immediately. You can just play it, tap it, draw a card, play it, exert it, draw a card. This is probably my pick for, I'd say, the best card in definitely the best card in Amber, I believe. The only other contention is Moana, but definitely one of the most powerful cards in the game. I'm going to toggle this between 4 and 5, so it's 4.5 out of 5. Even if you don't have that many cards or characters that cost 2 or less in your deck, even if you have, say, 12, just both colors you're playing 1-drops and maybe something else support that you play early. But I'd recommend playing more than 12 cards that cost 2 or less in your deck. This card's going to make all of them okay late and just keep card flow going, which, again, in this game, there's not that much card draw right now. There's only a few sources of it, and I'd say this is probably the best source for a one-sided card draw effect. Yeah, fantastic card. Next up here, Hades, King of Olympus. 6/7 quest for 1. Gets the ability to quest for 1 more for each other villain character you have in play. Shift 6. The only other Hades cards we've seen in Amber are the 2, or ones that cost the 4 that regrows a character. And I'm having a hard time believing that uninkable cards that cost more than 7 are really playable. There's a couple of them that are stronger, and obviously this one can shift on top of a Hades that costs less for 6, and immediately quest. Just because how shift works, it has the same capabilities as the character below it. So if your character you shifted onto could quest, this can quest too, or challenge, or whatever. But this card's fine. It being so costly is a bit tentative. I'm going to give it a 3 because I think it is a powerful effect. It definitely, you could play this on a stalled board of a bunch of things and immediately just quest for 7 just out of nowhere, and that is definitely a way to just instantly win the game. kind of everything you'd want on an expensive card, and the balancing technique of making it not inkable is certainly felt in cards like this. So definitely a good build around. Not game breaking, but will be cool to see as the game develops again what other villains you can play to make this card really scary. So has the potential to be better, but for right now, I think a 3 out of 5 is where it's at. But lastly, one of the cards I think a lot of people are really excited about, and which has me looking at every character's card type for Princess, is Moana. Whenever this character quest, which is for 3 on a 1/6, which can't really challenge very well, but definitely gets you a lot of lore. You get to ready all of your princesses, and they can't quest. So you immediately, of course, quest with all the other princesses, then quest with this, and then you get to untap them or ready them. And they can't be attacked, can't be challenged, only this can, and if you have a bodyguard or something like that in play, you can defend this from that. Of note, there was a Q&A session where they noted that when this character quests, regardless of whether or not the character was readied by the effect or not, any princess in play can no longer quest. It is important to note because I think it eliminates a lot of confusion and potential for abuse in competitive gameplay to keep track of which ones can or cannot quest or have not already. But that is something to note there, that once this quests, none of your other princesses can quest. Even though it says you may ready, it counts all of them. So, but definitely for this one, solid 4 stars. Because it doesn't draw cards like Stitch does, and it quests for a similar amount, that's why I'm not giving it quite a 5 or 4.5, but definitely one of the most powerful cards in the game, and something like a lot of people are going to try to build around, especially early, because it does have the ability to take over and is a must-answer threat almost when played immediately. A lot of reasons that you have to be able to kill high toughness creatures there, and even readied ones that are not able to be challenged. Moana is definitely the story mark reason for having cards that can do that, like Let It Go, and other cards we'll get to. But that has been the full Amber card library, the full set of Amber cards in Disney Lorcana's first set. So thanks for tuning in, and join me in the next video.